Yo, what's the scoop? Penis.
So for those of you that don't follow my main channel and don't know who Tom Morello is, well, you're missing out. But he's been in some pretty big bands, and two of them being Audioslave and of course Rage Against the Machine, which is where he started. Now, Audioslave and Rage Against the Machine are two different bands. Audioslave was more alt-rock and sang about stuff like depression and overcoming it, mainly because Chris Cornell was their lead singer. But Rage Against the Machine was always very, very political, with Zach De La Rocha taking the reins. And with a name like Rage Against the Machine, you can only wonder what machine they're raging against in this case. Yeah, recently he's been getting more and more political and whatnot, as per usual, I actually should say. And Tom Morello has a degree in this stuff, and he's very smart when it comes to this. I mean, the dude went to Harvard, and people are, discrediting him and whatnot and saying, I'm never going to listen to Rage Against the Machine again because he's getting political. And in my head I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense, because if you listen to Rage Against the Machine, I don't know. But this is just one of the comments that I found. It says, at Tom Morello, I used to be a fan until your political opinions came out. Music is my sanctuary, and the last thing I want to hear is political BS when I'm listening to music. As far as I'm concerned, you and Pink are completely done. Keep running your mouth and ruining your fan base. So, obviously, this guy isn't a true Rage Against the Machine fan if he listened to their music and didn't hear anything other than politics. I mean, it's... proof is in the pudding. With every single Rage Against the Machine song, I don't have to recommend one. It's just all there. With that, and I mean, he brought Pink into it, whatever, but that's the thing with this, though, is even if Tom Morello wasn't one to usually get political, and now he is and whatever, telling a musician to just make music is just, it's not a cool thing to say, because everybody has the right to voice their opinion on everything, and okay, a musician's job is to make music, but why can't they speak out in situations like this? Why can't they say this? Why can't they say that? It's like when that news reporter told LeBron James, just keep dribbling, when that whole Kaepernick situation thing happened. But yet she goes on to defend Drew Brees making comments, and once again, I'm not bashing Drew Brees. His comments were his comments. He learned from it after talking to his teammates. But she told LeBron, just keep dribbling, that's your job, you play basketball. And I'm just sitting there like, can he not voice his opinion? Is this not a thing anymore for anybody? So yeah, that was weird. And Tom Morello did respond to the tweet saying, Scott, what music of mine were you a fan of that didn't contain political BS? I need to know so I can delete it from the catalog. And then someone also made a response saying, the people angrily denouncing Rage Against the Machine for Tom Morello's leftist politics is one of the most hilarious things I've ever seen on the internet. What machine did you think they have been raging against for decades? The ice cream machine? The ATM? The lawnmowers? That's a good one. And then this was one of my favorite comments. It said, did Scott think fuck you, I won't do what you tell me was a message intended for someone's wife? I mean, it could have been. Who knows what the true lyrics are, really. But this is where the topic of the day really comes into, and that is to not denounce anybody for their past history via good or bad. And this is where things start to get weird, as in America, Confederate statues and whatnot are starting to be torn down or have been torn down, or people want them to be torn down. And look, I understand America's had a messed up past and whatnot, and things weren't great, but in the end, that's history. And other countries and stuff, they have bad history, and yet they still teach it and want people to know that they used to be bad, but they're improving. And I think that could be the same said with America. I know the situation going on right now, but we can't just completely erase history. That's something that can't happen, because, I don't know, this is the stuff that I learned in the textbook at school, and people want it erased all of a sudden when it's like, those people were around a long time ago, it happened, and it was a different time. This is now, so obviously we wouldn't worship people like this, but, you can't just completely knock down the statue and be like, all right, that's it, this never happened. It's just not, it really isn't the way to go about things. So if you think that way, I just want you to think for a sec and go, you just gotta look at the time period these people were around and how different it was. Sure, it's, stupid that they owned slaves, this, and that, and the other, but in the end, that was okay back then, before Abraham Lincoln came marching along and abolished slavery. So, it is what it is. This is someone, too, who I love going to places like this where they have the history and whatever, especially Gettysburg, me living in Pennsylvania, and Gettysburg has some of the Confederate statues up, and they have refused to take them down because it's part of their history, and I commend them for that. It's not because they're like, oh yeah, slave owners are great. No, they're just saying this was a part of the history, and this needs to be, this history needs to be taught and whatnot. I mean, Jesus Christ, a war took place in Gettysburg, so, that's big enough history in itself. It's where the Confederates fought. You know the whole story. I don't need to teach you history lessons. Rethink your decision on the whole history, the statues being torn down, because that's not going to fix things. That's not going to make things better. And never, ever denounce someone or try to not end their career, but just never look at someone's political beliefs and go, oh, well, you suck now, because that's not how things should be. That's not how relationships, friendships should end with family or friends in any way. This is why politics is one of the hardest things to talk about, and I avoided it for so long, because people that differ from you, whether they're people, who are on the left side or the right side, Democrat, Republican, are always going to disagree. You're never right, and you're always the idiot, and that's basically what I've been dealing with these past couple of weeks. But there's got to be people that agree with me on this. You can't tear down history. You can't erase history away from the U.S. just because, bad things happened back then. It's like, sure, it happened, but in the end, it was different times. That's really all I have to say. Other than that, you can take a look at this picture and tell me if you get it. And until then, hope you guys are staying safe out there, and I will catch you all in the next one.
Penis!